but I don't expect that it's going to be in the same, necessarily in the same space as where people are trading binary options.
Is it in essence an FX trade really, in most essences, the same thing as an option, where you're putting up $1,000 of margin for a $100,000 contract? Your downside is really limited to the margin you deposit, and your upside is unlimited?
People often say that. They say, if I have all this leverage, why do I need to buy options? I'll just point to the other side of the market. For every buyer of an option, there's a seller. And there's no way to replicate the sell side of an option through that same logic. If you want to think of an option as an insurance product, be the insurance company, sell the insurance, sell options, and earn income. For example, if you go onto an FX platform to trade spot, and you leave an order saying, if euro gets to 137, I want to sell. You're leaving an order that actually has value. Instead, you could sell a call option and get paid for leaving that order. This is something you can't really look at the other side. And it's also something people say, and I've seen it on retail sites where someone said, 80% of options expire out of the money, so they're a bad deal. Well, again, for every buyer, there's a seller. The reason 80% expire out of the money is because most options are traded out of the money. For every buyer of an option, there's a seller of an option, and there's great power, in fact, in selling options, buying them for protection, selling them for income.
Racheli, you have something to add? Or Avtar?
Yeah, I think about options is that primarily boils down to education. You need to understand the product itself. Take the example of Korea itself, the Kospi options. Even the housewives trade it. They know the risk involved. They know the mechanism of it, and they go for it. The thing about options is that it can be as complicated as you want it to be, and as simple as you want it. The thing is this, to know yourself. Why are you using options? What are the advantages and disadvantages, and why, and what you want this option to actually do something for you?
So I'm sorry, like 5 years ago, you would go, a broker would go to a bank and ask for liquidity in gold. And they'd have a very difficult time getting it. It would be almost the same it is to get, say, CFD liquidity now. But now, all of a sudden, the demand's gone up, and most banks are offering a gold product. So my question to you, being an expert in base metals and things like that, is do you feel that that growth in gold will continue? And do you find any other base metals or similar CFDs that could have a same type of popularity that gold has had in the last 5 years going forward into the next decade?
Okay, gold, it has taken a beating since December, right? When Ben Bernanke said the last QE, we realized that it may be the last. The price of gold started to drift down. What has happened now is gold is just above the 1200. It's really hot now because the demand is coming in from China. India had some restrictions on the exports, and they're not bringing as much gold through the normal channels. A lot of gold is going underground to India itself. But for physical, because most of us look at gold as what's the cost of production? The inefficient mines are working at 1200 an ounce. So whenever gold nears 1200, it dips below that, the demand, the buying on the dips come in, the physical demand starts to shoot up. No doubt you have sent a lot of hype in the papers that gold might go around to almost 1,000 itself, but I think the market is already factoring in. You look at the charts, it's like, the bottoms are there. Of course, the best are still in the market itself. They will defend their positions once gold start to rise, but most probably they will not press it further than 1200. Gold is definitely going to be the in thing. We love gold. The way the Asians look at gold and the West look at gold is very different. The Asians look at it as store of value. I want gold. If prices are appreciating, there is inflation, I want to keep gold. Whereas the West look at it as an instrument that they can invest in. It's just another product that they can buy and sell, and if they think it's going to go up, they want to make money out of it. Whereas the Asians look at it as a store of value. I want to keep gold. The Indians are even worse.
With the gold trading, though, do you find it to be a product that most retail investors typically just buy, as opposed to one where they actively go?
Yeah, it's primarily like that. The retail, they love to buy gold. And especially when it comes to physical gold, they'll buy it, whereas on the futures contracts, we find that on the sell side, it's mostly the larger players and the funds, whereas on the buy side, it's mostly the retail.
In the retail market, we're seeing a lot of customers, they're buying as well as selling. They love the volatility, they love to get in and get out. They like the big moves, and with a lot of leverage, they're seeing a lot of, there's a lot of opportunity for customers to make as well as lose a lot of money. It's probably one of the strongest growth products. Not just in Asia, but I think globally. People love that volatility, and they can get in and get out. Right now we're seeing a lot of lows, and we'll see where that goes over the next couple months.
And Tomas, so I believe there's another currency out there, virtual, called Bitcoin. And I've been told by some people that it's also a product that people tend to buy much more than to sell. And that has created a lot of challenges for brokers to be able to do market making on that. So from your experience at IG, where I believe you offer Bitcoin as well as gold, do you find, even though Bitcoin's early, that there's similar behavior, at least to the way gold was a few years ago, to how Bitcoin is now?
We did offer Bitcoin. We don't offer it anymore. I can't help but give my own personal view of Bitcoin. I personally are not bought into the Bitcoin phenomenon. It's very easy to get bought into it because there's an awful lot of hype. Currently, there's somewhere around $10 billion worth of Bitcoin in circulation. Sounds like a big number, but for a currency, that's absolutely minuscule. There's an awful lot of hype. The growth has been astronomical, agreed, so you can get very excited about it. There's an awful lot of trading going on in Bitcoin, which is speculation, but from a fundamental basis, why does Bitcoin exist? I mean, I think a lot of people are still, it's difficult to answer that question. It's a way of transferring wealth to avoid currency controls, which is not something that regulators and governments are particularly happy with. Governments have recently come out and mentioned that they don't recognize it as a currency, it's a commodity. China's not particularly happy with it, which is no surprise. So I personally see it as, maybe a few years back someone listened to this conversation and say, what an idiot, but this is my current view. I don't think it's
What are the risks? Like with a real currency,
Yeah.
there'll be, risks in terms of debt, fiscal policy, monetary policy. What do you feel are the biggest risks to Bitcoin as a currency?
A little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and I don't have enough knowledge about it. I don't. Is it stable? It's not backed by a government. There's probably people here know an awful lot about Bitcoin than I do, but I think there's an awful lot of skepticism around Bitcoin, and I think we hear a lot of the hype around it as well. So the risk is the ongoing continuation of the product, and also the use of the product for means which aren't legitimate.
See, a long-term option on the existence or price of Bitcoin in 10 years could be an interesting
I'll make you a price on that.
Kelly?
I think it's an interesting time to speak about Bitcoin in Asia. I don't know how much of you know, but actually Bitcoin is assumed to be invented in Japan. The largest exchange was in Japan until recently, and I'm saying until recently because it's been afterwards in China. The largest exchange by volume was BTC China, and just a month ago, actually the Bitcoin was devalued by 50%, and the reason for that was that it was not allowed anymore to deposit with yuan in a Bitcoin exchange. And not just that, they got another hit here in China from the fact that the central bank actually stopped any financial institutions with handling Bitcoin. So we heard about Alibaba, Alipay actually stopping to accept Bitcoin and the Chinese just say that they don't see it as a currency. So I think talking about how Bitcoin will continue here in China, it's a very interesting times now, and it will be very interesting how the story will evolve, but it's critical times.
Are binary brokers asking for binaries on Bitcoin yet?
Not yet. We didn't get too much demand for it. You do see like companies like Plus 500 and one of our clients, Ava, already starting CFDs on Bitcoin. And it's very hard for them, obviously, to manage the risks. So they reduce the leverage for these products, and it's not very easy, as has been said, to deal with the risk of it.
Stephen?
I'll just say that Bitcoin was created by anonymous developers, and it has no monopoly whatsoever on the concept of a digital currency or a non-currency, a fiat currency. So there are already other currencies that have been developed by others using the same concept of how it gets validated. But in my view, just as an anonymous, developed by an anonymous, one report of a hacker, I think the value of Bitcoin really could sustain a lot of risk.
Have you, though, heard, I was wondering the exact same thing, is that some guy made, or who knows, maybe a government actually made Bitcoin. It's anonymous is a little interesting. But have you heard of any other virtual currencies, or have you noticed any
course.
others gaining traction?
Of course, Google it. Baidu it, sorry.
So you know what I'm saying? Like, can you say, name any, like, that may be the next Bitcoin?
Litecoin, for
Litecoin?
example. There's just one.
Yep.
I've heard of Dogcoin. There are many. Fido Coin, there are many.
Yeah.
More
There's
than
no
60.
monopoly on the production because it doesn't represent anything, it's not backed by anything. It's just something that has a limited supply, according to the developers, and I do believe it has limited supply, but there's no reason, as I said, there's no monopoly for Bitcoin. It just happens to be the first and the one that's caught on with the press. But it has no monopoly on being the only digital currency, and therefore it's very hard for me. Gold, I can buy, I can wear it, I can trade it, I can do things with gold. Also, remember the volatility of gold over the last few years. You began by comparing Bitcoin to gold. Gold was used as a store of value. It was a hedge against the chaos of the financial markets. As the markets have become less risky, the price of gold has gone down. The risk premium of gold has mostly gone away. And now, as Sandhu said, now it's really a question of production cost, supply and demand, and the risk premium has gone away. Bitcoin, risk premium? I don't know.
Sean?
Yeah, I think, Bitcoin, it's all hyped up. The press gets involved in it, and you see people, real estate brokers accepting Bitcoin in New York City. Who carries around Bitcoin? And I don't know why somebody would want to pay for an apartment with Bitcoin. It's certainly very hyped up, but I think but it's very popular with retail customers. We're seeing a huge demand for retail people looking for Bitcoin, only because of the volatility. The people, they like volatility, add some leverage to it, and you have a great opportunity to make or lose a lot of money. But there's nobody really, part of that, the problem is on the back end, there's nobody providing leverage or credit to Bitcoin. So anybody trading on any one of the exchanges, you actually have to buy or sell the physical Bitcoin. You can't get any credit on it. So until that happens or somebody offers credit on it, it's really going to be quite limited.
Also, just wanted to say, there are some extremely smart people backing Bitcoin. Some extremely bright people invested, like the Winklevoss brothers and others, twins. So I'm not saying that they're wrong at all. I'm just saying it's certainly in development.
I guess as a medium of exchange, it has its limitations, it has its strength. If I'm a retailer, I would like to offer Bitcoin because there are a lot of people down there who have Bitcoins who want to buy my products, all right? And the thing is this, on my site, I have huge fluctuations in the value of the Bitcoin, so what do I do about it? If I can hedge it through the exchange itself, it will be a good thing. So that's what most retailers are doing. They get paid, and immediately they don't hold the Bitcoins because the value can fluctuate even 50% in the day itself. It has happened before. So what they do is just use the liquidity in the markets to turn it into real currency.
Also, I've noticed that there's now a section on the Forex Magnate site dedicated to Bitcoin. So that them being a portal that deals with a lot of the leading brokers, I think probably does demonstrate some level of demand, that it's becoming more and more of a legitimate product.
Could also mean that Michael owns some.
I think he has like two. But
Our experience of products becoming popular is how often it appears on the front page of a newspaper and the volatility. So, clearly there's a huge demand for trading the product because it's moving around.
Headline. That's, I think, why
Headline.
gold
There's-
became
there-
popular.
There's money
Yeah.
to be made. Think of lumber. I mean, how many people see lumber trade? Not much, because it doesn't move around. It's not particularly exciting. It's a liquid. Bitcoin is now becoming more liquid because there's more people trading it. Traders provide liquidity or create liquidity, and it's an exciting product. But in terms of Bitcoin as a rather than just speculating on it as a fundamental alternative means of exchange, that's the bit that I'm questioning. But in terms of a short-term exciting product to trade, yeah, it is that.
That's also, I think, more with the George Soros line of trading, where if everyone thinks that something has value or doesn't have value, it will cause it to have value or not have value.
Yeah, defining a bubble. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not going to suggest
exactly.
that it's a bubble, but it has quite a few of those characteristics.
But it's only 10 billion. Where did you get those numbers from?
Oh, that was in a newspaper article in the Financial Times recently. It went from 15 million to $10 billion in total value recently.
Do you, by any chance, know what the value of the gold is worldwide in terms of wealth?
No, I haven't got a clue.
Okay. Does anyone up here?
It's
I'm
gonna
kind of-
be
It would be
immense.
interesting because
It's quite tough because most of the gold actually is owned by the central banks. And the central banks actually don't tell you how much gold they actually accumulate. Central banks are currently net buyers of gold. 3 or 4 years ago, the traders always fear the central banks because the central banks will come in and sell their gold and for currencies. But now they're net buyers, so they rather accumulate gold than the US dollar.
if they don't disclose how much they have, like, how do we know that they're net buyers?
The net buyers in the sense that they buy more gold than they actually sell in a year.
Okay,
In total.
in total.
I mean, the way I measure it is a mini plug here, but the market capitalization of IG is roughly $4 billion US. So 10 billion, it's not much.
2.5 IGs.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not much.
No, but I would think that means that there's upside room if it's only.
Of course, I know that's
With
the
this
thing.
level of press, it goes to 100 billion. I mean, it should be reflected.
But there are very few models in production anymore of my shoes. I don't expect their value to be going up and up and up.
But do they talk about your shoes in
They're
the
great
newspaper?
shoes. It's
Yeah.
supply and demand is the only thing driving Bitcoin right now.
I-
Speculation.
Does everyone else agree with that?
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Not
so,
hype,
yeah.
new like things like
It's
that.
hype, it's
Demand
just
is
hype,
hype.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just hype.
It doesn't mean it's not going to continue.
So, and then I guess out of your firms, we'll do right now. About what percentage of your business comes from Asia, and where do you expect that to be going forward? And what are you doing to increase your own market share in the areas? So who wants to start?
I'll start. We see about 70% of the market share is in Asia. It's a great region. It's probably, we're here, and it's something that we, the culture, the people, they love the retail market, and for retail traders, it's really, it's really something that they can get a handle on, and they really love to hit the button. What we are seeing, though, is that there's a lot more algo traders, and that really makes a difference in, in how the back-end flows work. But they're certainly all very, very happy with the way things are going.
And then before we go back to the panelists, do we have any questions from the audience? Hold on. Will someone bring you, I believe, a microphone? Or...
Here.
One of the big things in the news is Bitcoin. The other one is renminbi liberalization. So I was wondering what the panelists think about China liberalizing the renminbi has on foreign exchange opportunities.
Tomas?
I've just come back from China. It was a hot topic of discussion. There's a lot of sort of more institutional brokers who are jumping onto this because it's the institutional space is opening up. But in terms of retail, I think that's a little bit further away. But it's inevitable that it will open up in time. When that's going to be, I don't know, but it's upwards from 5 years from a sort of a more retail perspective. But it's a really hot topic, and the opening up of the Shanghai Free Trade Zone as well, and the convertibility of the currency to essentially trade directly into the foreign markets. It's something that the Chinese government's heavily focusing on, as we all know. I wouldn't compare it to Bitcoin at all, though, but it is something that is very real and very, very close to where everyone should keep a very close eye on it.
And then before that, and what is IG doing to position itself for when the Chinese market opens up to the renminbi?
IG, we got about 25% of our revenue in Asia, much smaller than most firms, especially of our size. And that's quite deliberate. It's not by accident. And we've taken an extremely cautious view to Asia. And we've been trying to navigate through the very murky world of regulation, and it just really doesn't exist. So operating in this region has its problems. But we are working pretty heavily on a number of different partnerships and relationships with larger firms, and our focus as a business has always been on the more valuable clients. So we believe we provide a very good service to our more valuable clients. So that's our focus in Asia, where we see greater potential and lower risk in terms of targeting Asia. But I think that we're keeping an eye on how things are progressing. I think when things start opening up, we'll be very, very well placed to take advantage of that.
I agree in terms of when China will open also the capital flows, and people, the average Chinese could also export cash freely outside of China. It will definitely affect the trading volumes that we'll see. And also, if we talked about gold before, so gold was almost the only option, I think, for Chinese and from people from India actually to hedge against the risk, the instability of their own currency. And obviously, when we'll see much more free trading, free market, like we see internationally, I think it will affect the growth of other asset classes as well.
And does anyone else have anything to add?
Well, we're pretty happy with China. We have been providing prime broker services to a lot of Chinese brokerages. We have started introducing options to the Chinese itself, and we're just waiting for the day when the regulations will be simpler, easier to understand, and how China can grow. Right? When China grows, the whole world grows itself. The volumes that are traded on Shanghai and the Thailand exchanges, the tops in the world. And imagine the flows that are now currently flowing in and out of the exchange, and a lot of this volume will flow to other exchanges in the world. And we can see tremendous growth in the futures industry.
So I just want to thank everyone for attending. Does anyone else have another question? So I just want to thank everybody for attending today, as well as the panelists, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I do implore you to return at 1 o'clock for the next panel, which is payment processing in Asia. Now, that might sound a little dry, but if binary is a fake option, then Bitcoin is certainly a fake currency. And I'd suggest that the reason why that has been successful is China using Bitcoin to remove money from China to move it to places like this in order to buy gold in the first place. It's also relatively important to note, I think, that RMB will certainly be a large amount of your future deposits if you're a retail FX broker. So I would implore you to return at 1 o'clock to find out a lot more about moving money around in Asia. Thank you.